The word wood was added centuries later by a translator. The New English Bible is more specific. It says the ark was covered with reeds, and there's much evidence to support that conclusion. During the early 1900s, in the days of the great ocean sailing ships, builders learned that the longest wooden vessel that could withstand rough seas was about 300 feet. Anything over that would flex and twist until its joints would loosen or come apart completely. The longest wooden ship ever put into service was the Wyoming, the last of the six-masted freighters. At 330 feet, she was considered to be untrustworthy. The structure that lies in the mountains of Ararat is almost twice as long as the Wyoming. It's likely that wooden timbers were used for upright supports and flooring, but the area below the main deck appears to have been made primarily of reeds. Today there are stone-like pieces near the formation which show impressions of reed-like structures on the surface. They have a hollow sound when struck, and they appear to be a manufactured stone composed of layers of different materials. Many of the ancient texts agree that the ark was covered with some kind of substance, probably to make it watertight and to bind the reeds together. Translators use the words pitch or tar. Some call it bitumen. All three words mean essentially the same thing, a natural tar that oozes out of the ground. But that was separate from what was called oil, which also was used. It has been assumed that this was an organic oil derived from plants or tree sap. The fossil remains that can be seen today confirm that legend. The reeds appear to have been plastered on the inside with an organic resinous oil and layered on the outside with a mixture of pumice, natural tar, and natron, forming a kind of asphalt cement that would have been well suited for its task. One of the ancient Hebrew words for a covering of this kind is kafar, or in English, gopher. There are different accounts of how many humans and what kind of animals were aboard the ark. The book of Genesis identifies 8 people, including Noah, his wife, and his sons and their wives. Some have said that because only 8 were mentioned, there couldn't possibly have been anyone else. But that may be a premature conclusion, considering the size of the vessel and the work required to tend animals and handle anchor stones. The Quran says that Noah took aboard all believers, although few in number. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim loaded all his relatives, his craftsmen, and their children on board, and even identified his boatman by name as Puzur Amuru. It is not difficult to imagine his vessel staffed with a large and hard-working crew. We are told in Genesis that Noah was to bring on board 2 of every kind of animal. It didn't say whether this was every kind in the entire world, or every kind that was natural to the local area, or every kind that served a purpose for Noah. And since it didn't specify, the common assumption has been that it meant the entire world. And that has become the basis of the typical Sunday school image of the ark as a kind of floating zoo. This interpretation has led many people to reject the entire story. It's difficult to believe that creatures which existed on the other side of the planet would be able to reach the ark, walking and swimming literally halfway around the earth. The solution